Mark lived alone on the edge of Outpost 9, a quiet human colony on a forgotten planet. The colony was small, dusty, and forgotten by most of the galaxy. He worked at a scrapyard, fixing broken machines and selling parts to passing traders. Most days were the same until that night. The wind howled through the empty streets as Mark closed his shop. He locked the doors and turned to head home. But something stopped him. A sound, low and strange. Like breathing, heavy and shaky, he turned toward the alley behind the old tool shed. It was dark there, cold and filled with garbage. At first, he thought it was just wind playing tricks. But then he saw it movement. Slow and careful. A figure, small and thin, crouched behind a pile of rusted metal. Mark took a step closer. "Hello," he said, his voice soft but clear. The figure didn't answer as he stepped into the alley. The starlight touched her face. A girl, not human, not like anything he had seen before. Her skin was pale blue with purple patterns across her cheeks. Her eyes glowed faintly, wide with fear and hunger. She wore almost nothing, just torn rags barely covering her. Her arms and legs were scratched, bruised, dirty. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, maybe more. Mark's first instinct was to back away, but then he saw her hands, thin, shaking, clutching a piece of dry bread she must have found in the trash. She was eating it like an animal, tearing it apart with her teeth. "Hey." "It's okay," Mark said slowly, kneeling down. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl froze, staring at him. Then she hissed, showing sharp teeth. Her body tensed like she was ready to run or attack. But Mark didn't move. He reached into his bag and pulled out a wrapped food bar. He placed it gently on the ground between them and slid it toward her. She sniffed the air, her nose twitching like a frightened creature. Then, quick as a flash, she grabbed it and backed away. She tore it open with her teeth and devoured it like her life depended on it. Mark watched in silence. He had seen hungry beings before, but not like this. Not this level of desperation. Not this fear. "Where's your family?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. She just looked at him with those strange, glowing eyes. And for a second, he saw something deep inside her gaze. Pain, fear, confusion, but also intelligence. She wasn't just a wild alien. She was more than that. Mark took off his jacket and slowly held it out to her. "You're cold," he said. "Take this." She didn't move at first, but after a long pause, she crawled forward, trembling, still on all fours, like she didn't know how to walk upright. She snatched the jacket and wrapped it tightly around her small body. Mark stood, looking down at her. He couldn't just leave her here. She'd die, either from the cold, hunger, or worse, there were others in the colony who wouldn't be kind. "Come with me," he said softly. "I have food, a warm place." The girl didn't answer, but she followed, slowly, walking behind him like a stray animal. Mark led her through the empty streets, past closed shops and flickering lights. People stared from windows as he passed with the alien girl. He could already hear the whispers the next morning would bring, but he didn't care. Something about her haunted him. She was just a kid, and she needed help when they reached his home. A small metal cabin at the colony's edge. He opened the door. "Come inside," he said. She hesitated, looking around nervously. Then, with small steps, she walked in. Mark gave her a blanket and a fresh meal. She sat in the corner, eating. Slowly now, her eyes still watching him, she hadn't spoken a single word. But Mark didn't rush her. He sat nearby and said, "You're safe here." She paused, her head tilted, and for the first time, she whispered one single word in a soft, shaky voice, "Safe." Mark smiled. Maybe this was the beginning of something strange, maybe even dangerous. But one thing was clear. This girl was not what he expected. The next morning, Mark woke up to silence. For a moment, he thought the strange night had been a dream. But when he walked into the living area, the girl was still there. She was sitting in the same corner, wrapped in the same blanket. Watching him with her glowing eyes, the food plate was empty, licked clean. She didn't move when he came closer, but she didn't run either. That was progress, Mark thought. Did you sleep? He asked. No answer. She blinked slowly, then looked away. He could see she still didn't trust him. Mark sighed and turned to make breakfast. He poured water into the kettle and lit the heating plate. Outside, the sun was rising over the rocky hills, filling the colony with pale light. But as he opened the front door to get supplies, he froze. There was something on the wall. Something that wasn't there yesterday. A message scratched into the metal of his home. Long alien symbols. Rough and deep, they weren't human letters, but Mark had seen some of them before. Not in person, but in warning files. One symbol meant danger, another meant unclean. The last one chilled his blood. It meant kill on sight. Mark stepped back, heart pounding. Someone had been here during the night. Someone who knew what she was. He rushed back inside and slammed the door shut. The girl looked up, startled. Mark walked over, knelt beside her, and spoke calmly. "Did someone come here last night?" he asked. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she shook her head. Slowly, Mark believed her. If she had heard anything, she would have run. But that meant someone or something had silently come to mark his home. He looked outside again through the window. A neighbor was standing across the street, pretending to check her plants. Two others were whispering near a shop, stealing glances at his house. They knew. Mark turned back to the girl. "You're in danger," he said. "They know you're here." The girl looked at him, her mouth slightly open. Then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, she whispered, "Kira." Mark blinked. "Is that your name?" he asked. She nodded once, her face unreadable. Kira, finally. She had given him something. Mark stood and began locking the doors and windows. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew this colony well, and once fear started, it spread fast. That afternoon, he went to the market to gather supplies. When he returned, he found a note shoved under his door. It was written in basic galactic trade script. "Turn her in before it's too late." No name, no signature, just a warning or a threat. Mark burned the note. He wasn't going to abandon Kira. He had no idea what she was or why people were scared of her. But she wasn't a monster. She was just a scared girl with nowhere to go that night. As the wind picked up and dust blew against the windows, Kira sat closer to the heater. Mark handed her a new set of clothes, soft, warm, clean. She looked at them like she didn't understand. Then, carefully, almost shyly, she took them and disappeared into the back room. Minutes later, she stepped out, dressed and cleaner. She didn't look like the creature he had found in the alley anymore. She looked like a person lost, but trying to belong. Mark smiled. "You look better," he said. Kira tilted her head, then surprised him by saying, "Thank you." 2 words, spoken clearly. She was learning fast, but just as Mark felt a bit of hope. The power flickered, the lights buzzed, and went dark. Only the heater's glow lit the room now. Mark checked the control panel sabotaged. Wires were cut, slashed with a sharp tool. Someone didn't want them safe tonight. Outside, footsteps crunched on the gravel. Slow and steady. Mark grabbed his old shock pistol. His hands were shaking not from fear for himself, but for the girl who sat behind him, clutching the blanket with wide eyes. Who were these people? What did they think she was? Mark stood in front of Kira as shadows passed by the window. He didn't say a word, but in his heart, he made a silent promise. No matter what happened next, he wouldn't let them take her. Not now, not ever. The morning light came weakly through the cracked window. Mark woke up to the quiet breathing of Kira beside him. She was sleeping on the thin mattress on the floor. Wrapped tightly in the blanket, her pale blue skin looked softer in the daylight. But the bruises and scars still showed clearly. Mark rubbed his tired eyes and decided it was time to help her heal properly. He gathered some medical supplies and called her gently. "Kira, I want to clean your wounds," he said. She opened her glowing eyes and nodded slowly. She followed him silently to the small bathroom. Mark gently cleaned the cuts on her arms and legs. As he worked, he noticed something strange on her back. Near her shoulder blade, a small metal object just beneath the skin, shining faintly. Curious, Mark carefully touched the spot. Kira flinched but didn't pull away, using a tiny flashlight and his tools. Mark tried to see better. It was a thin, flat chip, embedded under her skin like a tattoo. Mark's heart skipped a beat. He had heard stories about implanted devices used for tracking or control. But this was different. This looked like data storage, a tiny hard drive. "Kira, what is this?" he asked softly. She looked at him, confusion and fear mixed in her eyes. She didn't answer. Mark decided to scan the chip, hoping to learn more, using a small scanner from his toolbox. He carefully linked it to his portable device. The screen flickered and loaded strange codes and images. Mark's eyes widened as he read the files. The data was a secret record, classified by an unknown galactic empire. It showed genetic experiments, weapons, research, and project plans. And at the center was a file with her name, Kira. She was not just an alien, she was a living weapon, created and trained in secret. Mark felt a cold wave run down his spine. This girl was more than just lost or scared. She was dangerous, or at least, that's what they wanted everyone to believe. Kira stared at the device in Mark's hands. Her glowing eyes flickered with pain and memories. Suddenly, she whispered, "I am not what you think." Mark nodded slowly. "I don't know what to think yet, but I want to help you," he said. She looked down, silent. Then slowly began to tell a story. She remembered being taken from her home as a child, locked in a lab where cold machines tested her mind and body, trained to fight, to obey, to be a weapon for a war she did not choose. She escaped during chaos in the lab, but was hunted everywhere. "They want to erase me," she said quietly. "Because I know too much." Mark listened carefully. His mind raced. If this empire found her, they could destroy the whole colony, or worse, use her to start a new war. He looked at Kira and saw a mixture of strength and fear. She was tired, confused, and maybe even broken. But she was still human enough to want to live free. Mark made a decision. He would not hand her over. No matter what came next, the day passed slowly. Kira rested while Mark prepared plans. He thought about the warnings scratched on his walls, the notes under his door, the broken power lines. Someone was coming for Kira. And Mark had no army, no weapons, no help. But he had his mind, his courage, and his word. And that had to be enough. As evening fell, Kira stood by the window, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She whispered again, "Thank you, Mark." Mark smiled. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "We still have a long fight ahead." Outside, the wind picked up again. And in the distance, Mark saw the flashing lights of ships. They were coming. Night fell fast over the quiet colony. Mark sat near the window, watching the empty street. His mind raced with the secrets Kira had told him. The Empire hunting her, the danger she carried. Suddenly, the silence broke. Outside, a soft hum filled the air. Drones. They were scanning the area, searching for something. Or someone. Mark's heart pounded. He grabbed Kira's arm gently. "They're close," he whispered. Kira nodded, her glowing eyes sharp now. Alert, they had no time to waste. Mark packed a small bag with food, water, and tools. Kira helped silently, moving with a new strength. Her fear was turning into focus. "We need to leave," Mark said. Kira looked out the window. "Us." She spoke clearly for the first time. "They will destroy everything if they find me here." Mark nodded. He had heard stories about the Empire's ruthless ways, whole towns erased to hide secrets. They couldn't let that happen here. Together, they slipped out the back door. The night was cold and dark, perfect for hiding, but the drones were fast and smart. Flashing lights searched every corner, every shadow. Mark led Kira through narrow alleys and empty streets. He knew the colony well. But this was different. They were running from death itself. Suddenly, Kira stopped. Her body stiffened. She listened carefully, then whispered, "They're here." Mark turned a corner and saw two figures in dark armor. They moved quietly, weapons ready. "Hide." Mark hissed, pulling Kira into a doorway. They crouched behind a stack of crates, hearts pounding. The hunters passed close, scanning with glowing eyes. One stopped and touched a small device. "Target is near," the voice said coldly. Mark swallowed hard. He felt the weight of danger crushing him. If they were caught now, it would be over. But then, something changed. Kira's eyes glowed bright. She stepped out slowly, hands open. "I am here," she said, calm and strong. The hunters froze. One raised a weapon, but before he could fire, Kira moved like lightning. A blast of energy from her hands sent the hunter flying. Mark watched in shock. The girl he thought was weak was a weapon indeed, but she did not kill the second hunter. She held him frozen, eyes full of power, but not hate. "Leave now," she said quietly. "If you come back, I will not stop you." The hunters retreated. Mark pulled Kira back into the shadows. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her face was pale. "We have no time," she said. "They will send more." Mark realized this was only the beginning. The Empire would not stop. They wanted Kira dead or captured. No matter the cost, he looked at her. Determination growing. "We need a plan," he said. "We can't just run forever," Kira agreed. She told him about a place far from the colony, a hidden refuge where others like her might be safe. Mark felt hope for the first time in days. They would escape the hunters. They would find safety, but first they had to survive the night. They moved quickly, avoiding main roads and cameras. Every step was tense, every shadow a threat. At one point, Kira stumbled, her body weak from hunger and pain. Mark caught her, holding her close. "We're almost there," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "I trust you," she said. Mark's heart warmed. Trust was rare in this world. After hours of running, they reached the outskirts. The refuge was real, hidden beneath the rocky hills. A small group of aliens and humans lived there quietly, away from wars and politics. They welcomed Kira cautiously but kindly. Mark felt relief wash over him. For the first time, they were safe. But deep inside, Mark knew this was only a pause. The Empire's shadow was long. And the fight was far from over. As they settled in, Kira looked at Mark. "You saved me," she said softly. Mark smiled. "I'll keep saving you as long as I can." Outside, stars shone brightly, but in the darkness between them, danger still waited, and tomorrow would bring new challenges. The small refuge was quiet but not peaceful. Kira sat by the fire, staring into the dancing flames. Her eyes glowed softly as memories stirred deep inside her mind. Mark watched her carefully. He knew the past was heavy for her, and that some memories could hurt more than any wound. "Tell me," Mark said gently, "what happened to you?" Kira took a deep breath. Her voice was low and steady. "I was born in the war zones of the Outer Rim. My people were caught between empires, fighting for control. I was taken when I was very young, taken to a lab where they did terrible things. To me," she paused, her hands trembling slightly. "They wanted to make me into a perfect soldier. Stronger, faster, smarter than any warrior. But they forgot to ask if I wanted to be their weapon." Mark felt a knot in his stomach. The images she painted were dark and cruel. Children trained to kill, stripped of their childhood, bodies changed. By science, minds twisted by fear. Kira looked at Mark. I escaped during an attack on the lab. I ran as far as I could, but they never stopped chasing me. I lost everything, my family, my home, my future. Her voice cracked. Mark reached out and held her hand. You're safe now, he said. We will protect you. Kira nodded slowly, but I carry their memories with me. The battles, the pain, the fire. That night, Kira's stories filled the refuge. Others listened in silence. Understanding pain they had never known, Mark stayed awake, thinking about what she had endured. He realized she was more than a survivor. She was a symbol of hope and pain mixed. A living reminder of a war most wanted to forget. Days passed, and Kira trained with the refuge fighters. Her skills were sharp, her mind quick. But she fought only to protect, not to hurt. Mark helped her recover physically and emotionally. Their bond grew stronger, built on trust and shared fears. One evening, Kira showed Mark a small faded photo, a family smiling. A happy past she barely remembered. Mark smiled softly. You will have a new family here, he said, and I will be part of it. But peace was fragile. Messages arrived, warnings from the Empire. They had found the refuge's location. Soon, soldiers would come. Mark and Kira prepared for battle. The fight was not just for her, but for everyone who believed in freedom. As the sun set, they stood side by side, ready to face the fire ahead, together. They were stronger than the memories trying to break them. The night was thick with tension. Mark and Kira stood at the entrance of the refuge. The air was heavy, filled with the sounds of distant engines and voices. The Empire soldiers were coming, their footsteps echoed closer, ready to destroy everything. Mark looked at Kira. Her eyes shone with determination and something else, fear. She was no longer the frightened girl from the alley. She was a warrior, but even warriors have doubts. We don't have many weapons, Mark said quietly, but we have each other. Kira nodded. I will fight, she said, but I do not want to lose myself again. Mark reached out and took her hand. I won't let that happen, he promised. We fight to live, not to become monsters. The refuge fighters gathered around. They set up traps and defenses. Every corner was prepared for the coming battle. As the first soldiers approached, Kira took a deep breath. Her body glowed faintly with the energy that made her special. She moved with speed and grace, taking down enemies before they knew she was there. Mark followed closely, using his skills to disable traps and protect the others. Together, they pushed the attackers back, but the soldiers kept coming, stronger and more numerous. In the heat of battle, Mark was hit. A sharp pain in his side made him stumble. Kira saw him fall. Her heart stopped for a moment, without hesitation. She rushed to his side, her hands glowing bright as she used her power to heal him. Mark looked up, surprised. You saved me, he said, breathless. She smiled weakly. I will always protect you, she whispered, but the fight was far from over. The Empire sent more troops. Kira's power grew, but so did the darkness inside her. She felt the old rage, the desire to destroy without mercy. Mark noticed the change. Remember who you are, he said firmly. You are more than a weapon. Kira closed her eyes, struggling, then opened them. Calm once more. I am me, she said, and I choose to protect, not destroy. With renewed strength, they led the final defense. The attackers broke and fled. The refuge was safe, for now. As the dust settled, Mark helped Kira stand. You were amazing, he said, but the choice you made was the greatest. Victory. Kira looked at him. For the first time, I feel free, she said softly. Because you believed in me, Mark smiled, and I always will. The morning after the battle was quiet. The sun rose slowly over the refuge. Mark and Kira sat outside, tired but alive. The air was fresh, filled with the smell of new beginnings. Mark looked at Kira. She was different now, not just the scared girl from the alley. Not just a weapon or a fighter, she was something more, something powerful and real. Kira smiled softly. "I thought I was broken," she said, "but you showed me I was whole." Mark nodded. "You are stronger than you know," he said, "and this world needs your strength, not your fear." They talked about the future, of a place where Kira could live without running, where she could be free to choose her own path. The refuge people welcomed her with open arms. They saw her not as a weapon, but as a friend, a protector, and a symbol of hope. Mark and Kira trained the young fighters, teaching them to defend their home with courage and kindness. Together, they built a new family, stronger than any empire. One day, a message came from the empire, a warning and a promise. They would never stop hunting Kira, but the refuge was ready now. Mark stood beside Kira. "We will face them, whatever comes," he said. She looked at him, eyes shining with trust. "Together," she replied. The colony was no longer just a place to survive. It was a home, a place where hope grew even in the darkest times. Mark realized that the girl he had found starving and alone was not just saved. She had saved him too. She was not what he expected. She was more than a weapon, more than a survivor, more than anyone could imagine. She was a new beginning, a light in the galaxy's shadow, and together they would face whatever the stars sent next.